Brah, we got this! Heyo everyone, what's up? It's Joe. I'm doing another guide in Destiny. This one is on the Taken King raid, King's Fall. So much fun. Played it, like all day when it came out. Tons of fun. Anyways, I'm just going to get right into it because there's a lot of content to cover. So this is going to be kind of fast, but it'll be in depth as well. So the very first part, you spawn at the Court of Oryx, and you'll notice two things. One, there are two relics and a relic keyhole where one of the statues is, leading up to the Court of Oryx. Now, what you want to do is you want to have two people pick up the relics, so one relic for each, and when you pick them up, enemies will spawn in that hallway where the statues are. There will also be a white wall that appears between you and the enemies. You can shoot the white wall to destroy it, and then you can clear out the enemies afterwards. So once you do that, you want to have both relic holders dunk their relic into the keyhole within like 3 seconds of each other. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to move on. So go at the same time or like within 2 to 3 seconds of each other, and the keyhole will move to another statue. Then you basically rinse and repeat. But only this time, the relics will change location. So you'll see it in the video. The second time they spawn, they are outside of that starting room. So you have to go to the left and the right and go out the doors, and you'll see some enemies there that'll spawn. You can take them out pretty easily, and then you'll also see the relic just like floating in the air. So you just jump up, grab it, run back, and because you grabbed it again, enemies will spawn back in the Court of Oryx. Have other people take them out because you can't shoot your guns or throw grenades when you're holding the relic. And then once those are clear, dunk the relics into the second keyhole, and then again rinse and repeat for the third, fourth, fifth, and sixth. I'll show you where the rest of the relics are, at least for the for a couple of the sides. I don't know exactly how similar it is on both sides. I'm pretty sure that like both sides are basically like mirror matches. So the third one, it's just past where the second one is. So instead of in the air, it's on that platform. The fourth one, it is inside the room past where the third one would be. So the third one's like in front of that doorway. You go through the doorway, it's in that room. You should see it like right away. The fifth one, it again, same room, but it's between those two like spikes, where you would expect something to be. And then the sixth one is like kind of behind those spikes, but also like to the side of them. You'll see it in the video. But yeah, so basically each time you just grab the relics, have the other 4 people shoot all the enemies, get rid of all the white walls that appear, because more will appear in your way, and you can't melee them. When you finish dunking all of the 6 keyholes or whatever, then the portal in the Court of Oryx will activate, and enemies will come out of that. You can kill them, you can ignore them, doesn't matter, just get through the portal. On the other side of the portal, there's a chest, and when the chest opens, you'll get some worm spores, maybe like an engram, and you'll also get a new material called Moldering Shard. And basically, if you have 20 of those, by the time you beat Oryx at the end of the raid, you'll get extra rewards. You can also buy them from Eris Morn if she's rank 5, if you have 2500 Glimmer, and if you have 15 Hadium Flakes. Now, part 2. So after the chest, there's going to be these pendulums that are swinging back and forth. Basically, all you got to do, jump across each pendulum to get to the other side. No big deal. The only trick here is time the jumps when the pendulums are crossing each other or when they're lined up with each other, like swinging the same way, because they carry a lot of momentum, including yours. So if a pendulum is swinging left and it's already crossed with a pendulum that's swinging right, you're not going to be able to jump on that pendulum that's swinging right, because if you try to move and jump right, you're just going to jump straight up and down. You're not going to get anywhere, and you'll fall and die. So time it. Wait for them to come towards each other, or wait for them to be aligned with one another, like swinging in sync. Now, after the pendulums, there will be a bunch of ships and a bunch of enemies. Kill the enemies, pretty easy. Knights and acolytes, whatever. There's also going to be a ship that's like docked in the middle of the area that you're in. You're going to want to board that ship. So once you're on that ship, you're going to want to wait a little bit and keep your attention on the right side of it. You'll notice that there's another ship coming down towards the ship you're on. You're going to want to jump to that ship when it gets closer, because this part requires platforming between 10 different ships. So that's the second ship. That once that one goes, the third one will appear from like far ahead, and on the right. That one's gonna go. The fourth ship will be in front of that one. Like, you can't miss. It's like as soon as you get on the third ship, just face the front of the third ship, and you'll see the fourth ship. Just jump across to that one. That one's gonna go towards a pillar, and attached to the pillar is a platform. When it gets close enough, jump onto the platform from the ship. Now, when you're on the platform, you're gonna want to look to the right and down, and you'll see a ship eventually spawn below the platform, and that's going to be ship number 5. So you're going to want to jump onto that one, and that one's going to go for a little bit, and it's going to take a while for the 6th ship to appear. But that one's going to be coming from the front. It's going to go left to right, and so you're going to want to jump on that. Make sure when you do get on ship number 6 that you stay towards the back of it, because there's going to be a ship that tries to knock you off, and that is not the 7th ship, but there's going to be a troll ship that comes and tries to knock you off. So the 7th ship is going to be on the right and in front of the 6th ship. You should be able to see it pretty easily. So again, when it's close enough, jump onto it. That one's going to go for a bit towards like a wall, and then the 8th ship is going to come directly towards you, and just like slightly off to the right. Can't miss it. So get on that one. That's ship number 8. Ship number 9, again, will be in front of that ship. So that ship's going to be coming the other way. So you're basically going back to where ship 7 started. Ship number 9, that's going to be going from left to right in front of ship 8. Get on that one. That is ship number 9. That one's going to go, and look at, like, if the ship is a clock, look at like the 1 o'clock. If 12 is the front of the ship, and look below, and you'll see the 10th ship, and it's going to appear right as the 9th starts to disappear. So you have to be like really quick about it. So after the 10th ship, you're going to want to get onto the platform and then move to the next area. There's going to be some enemies and another ship. Take out the enemies, have 4 people get onto the ship, and as it departs, the other 2 people who are left behind need to go to the left and the right, and there will be 2 pads on the ground. You need to stand on those pads, and that's going to open up the gate that you can see on the far side of the room where the ship is going. And that's going to open up the gate and allow both the ship and the people to go through. Otherwise, people would just fall off and the ship would go through on its own. So once the 4 are over, then they jump off the ship, kill all the enemies there, and then do the same thing for the last 2 people. There's 2 pads on that side as well, so they get on those pads, and then the last 2 people get on the next ship and head on over. So then after that, you go through the hallway, go up the lift one at a time, otherwise you'll get stuck and you'll be forced back to orbit, and when you come back from orbit, you'll be sent to the beginning of the 10 ship jump, and you don't want that. So go up the lift one at a time, and then that's the end of the second part. So the third part, right after the lift, there's going to be a calcified fragment you can pick up right in the doorway. When the door opens, it's going to be like right there in front of you. You can't miss it. It's glowing. There's a couple things to take note of. There's the pad in the middle of the room. There's the big door with glyphs on each side. There's 10 on each side. There's acolytes, and then on the left and right of that middle pad, there is 2 rooms, and in front of each room, there's an orb, and inside each room, there's an annihilator totem. So the way to deal with this is this part of the raid starts when someone picks up one of the orbs or like shoots an acolyte. So you're going to want 2 people on the left, 2 people on the right, and 2 people in the middle. And make sure the 2 people in the middle pick either left or right, because they're going to be running back and forth between left and middle or right and middle. So make sure they know which side they're going to ahead of time before you begin. Now, what the point of this one is, the orbs, they act as buffs, kind of like the interloper buff from my Poison Floor Interloper guide video. And basically, the buff allows you to walk into those rooms without being poisoned and killed by the floor. It's kind of like the Court of Oryx floor. It kills you slowly over time. So how it works is someone picks up the orb and they go with another person into each room and stand on the Annihilator totem, because the totem will wake up as soon as the orb is picked up. Now, you need to stay there and kill all the enemies that come towards you. You'll notice that the buff is called Brand of the Unraveler or Brand of the Weaver for the left and right respectively. Now, the buff will also tether to people around you, providing them with the same aura that you have, which prevents you from being poisoned and killed by the floor. Each time the buff transfers, which happens when the buff timer reaches 0, it transfers to the person it's tethered to. Each time that happens, a knight will spawn in the top balcony of each room. A glyph on each side of the door will appear, which corresponds to the left and the right rooms respectively. So if the left buff transfers, then the left glyph will appear. So basically the point of this is to transfer the buff 10 times to open the door. Also, the original buff holder will gain a debuff called Deathsinger's Power times 10. They need to switch with the person that was left in the middle of the room and go stand on the middle platform. The middle pad or platform, that reduces your Deathsinger's power to 0 and allows you to pick up the buff again. If you still have Deathsinger's power, then you cannot pick up the buff. It cannot be transferred to you at all, and you will lose this part of the raid. So the trick with this is 2 teams of 3, 3 groups of 2. So you have 2 people in each section, left, middle, right, but you have 3 people working together for each half of the this section of the 3 rooms. So the first person who has the buff, they're gonna lose it and give it to the second person with them on the Annihilator totem. Once you lose it as the buff holder, make sure you communicate with your team. Tell the person in the middle, switch, start running back, and they'll start running towards the Annihilator totem and take your place. So now the second person who is with you on the Annihilator totem, they are now the buff holder, and they have the countdown clock. And you have to stand on the pad in the middle where those acolytes were to lower your Deathsinger's power back down to 0, which will allow you to hold the buff again. Meanwhile, the clock will tick down for the second buff holder, and eventually it'll hit 0 and transfer to the third person who was originally in the middle, and then another glyph will activate, another knight will spawn, and they're going to switch with you who are in the middle. So now the second person goes to the middle, you go back to the Annihilator totem, and the third person who was originally in the middle, they now have the buff and the countdown clock for it. And it's basically that cycle. It just repeats itself. So you have the buff, transfers, go to pad, switch once the buff transfers again, and then you reclaim the buff once the third person transfers it to you and goes back to middle. And then you just do that 10 times on each side, and you'll open the door. And the reward for this is, besides having the ability to effectively communicate and work together with your team, you can get Moldering Shards and a cool fusion rifle called Midha's Reckoning, which does extra damage to Taken, and whenever it's stowed away, like you're not using it, you're using your primary or your heavy weapon, it will reload itself with its reserve ammo. So now on to the fourth part. The fourth part is through the door, and there's 3 pads: a middle pad, a right pad, and a left pad. The right pad's just a short little ledge up. The left pad is all the way at the top of that high ledge. There's also 3 pillars with glowing carvings on the back. Those are important. So to start, you stand on the pads and summon the boss, which is the Warpiest, and he is immune to damage. He also spawns enemies from the sides that will attack people on each pad. So have 2 people on each pad, left, right, and middle. He'll summon acolytes, adepts, which are super acolytes that explode when they die, and they empower acolytes around them and make them into tiny ogres, so they shoot like eye lasers. He'll summon wizards and knights, and eventually he will summon Hallowed Knights. Now, what happens when you kill the Hallowed Knights is the glyph sequence activates. So what that means is you need to look at the back of those pillars where the glowing carvings are, the carvings of Oryx, and that tells you what the sequence is. So let's say the left pillar glows. So that means you need to be on the left pad first, and you need to stay on there because that's the first in the sequence of 3. Let's say the right pillar glows next. That means the right pad needs to be stood on second, and then that leaves the middle one for last by default. So when that happens, the person who stands on the final pad in the sequence will get a big aura buff called Brand of the Initiate, and it starts at 4 times power and ticks down from 10 seconds all the way to 0. Now, if you're holding the buff, you're going to want to kill enemies when it gets down to like 2 or 1 seconds, because if you don't, the buff will disappear. But if you kill an enemy, the buff will only tick down in power instead of just disappearing completely, and the countdown will refresh. So it'll be, times 4 power with 3 seconds, 2 seconds, 1 second. Kill an enemy. Now it's times 3 power, 10 seconds, 9 seconds, 8 seconds. You just repeat that. And meanwhile, everyone else within the aura, they can damage the Warpiest, and this is the only way to deal damage to him. I recommend using Titan Bubbles with Weapons of Light, and Hunters with Shadow Shot, which is the new Void Bow, because Weapons of Light gives you more damage, and Shadow Shot weakens enemies, which means you deal more damage to them. So do that, and you'll deal tons of freaking damage. But after the buff runs out, once it gets down to, Brand of the Initiate times 1, and the timer runs out, you're going to want to hide behind the middle pillar, because the big black ball floating above the Warpiest, that's going to summon like a blizzard of dark energy that will kill you if you're not behind the middle pillar. And after the blizzard dissipates, the pillar will disappear as well. So the middle pillar will no longer be there. You can still do the glyph sequence though, because in place of the carving, it's going to have just a big pillar of fire, and that's how you know to choose that one for the glyph sequence. You basically have 4 attempts to down the Warpiest. So basically, what you want to do is try and down him within 3 sequences, because by the 4th one, if you don't beat him by the end of the 4th sequence, then the Oculus will kill you with its Blizzard of Death. Our average light level is 286, and we beat him before the 3rd pillar even disappeared, so you don't need a whole lot of firepower. We also had a bunch of shadow shots, and I also brought a Weapons of Light bubble, so that helped. At the end, you'll get Moldering Shards, and if you have the Eris Morn quest, Form the Ritual, then you'll also get the Blade of Famine. Now, the 5th part of the raid, it's actually pretty simple, but it took us 30 minutes just because we didn't know what we were doing. So after the Warpiest, you go through the portal, and there's going to be this like maze of darkness, and there's going to be holes in the ground, but you can find where the holes are either by walking slowly and looking down, or you can look for these big moths that are flying around. They fly over the holes, so you know where they are. You'll see in the video that we immediately go to, we go straight and we go to the left, and then we go to the left again. And we find this symbol on the ground. There are 4 of those that we found throughout the maze, and when you stand on them, a noise starts to appear, kind of like an ogre like banging on a door or something like that, or like roaring or something. There's 4 of them. We think you have to find all 4 before you can open the door. We're not sure though. So what I suggest is everyone follow my map. I have a map on the video. Follow my map. Go to the green circle on the map. That's the end where the door is. Everyone go there. If the door doesn't open with everyone on your fire team there, then send 4 people back through the maze to stand on those symbols on the ground. And then after a few seconds, have them come back to the door, and it should open then. That's what we did. The 4th one, it's tricky, but it's tricky to find, which is why it has like that little curve on the map. basically, in the video, you just parkour up these pillars, and there's going to be a ledge, and you jump on the ledge, go through the little hole in the wall, and then drop down, and there's the 4th symbol there. You'll see it. So then, again, the maze ends when everyone is at the door, and it'll cause it to open. I'm not sure if you all can just go there immediately, or if you need to find the 4 symbols first. Not sure. So that was part 5. Part 6 is, in my opinion, the toughest one yet. To start off, there's an orb in the middle of the room on the ceiling, and that summons the boss. There's also a tablet towards the back of the room that has 6 glyphs on it. Basically, every time someone dies during this boss fight, one of those glyphs will light up. If all 6 light up, then you instantly lose. So make sure you don't die 6 times. So the boss is an ogre, so he has eye beams. He also has really durable skin, so shooting him pretty much like anywhere does like next to no damage. The growth on his back, it does damage, but nothing actually hurts him except for damaging his stomach. And you can only damage his stomach by doing 2 things. First, you have to attract his gaze, and to do that, you just shoot the big growth on his back. The second thing that happens is 6 orbs will spawn on the ceiling, much like the one to summon him. They'll look like that. You shoot one of them, and it will drop down and form a pool of reclaiming light. You stand in the pool, and you can deal damage to, increased damage to Golgoroth. And it'll also open up his stomach, because his stomach is protected by like a rib cage of bones. But those will open up, because the orbs are like food capsules, basically. So what you're going to want to do is, when he's summoned, he will also summon acolytes and like thralls and stuff, and adepts. You're going to want to kill all those first. Again, make sure to save the adepts for last, or make sure they're not near other acolytes when you kill them. And then once all those are clear, select 2 people to be runners and 4 people to be shooters. The shooters, they focus on sitting in the pool of reclaiming light, while the runners shoot the growth on his back and get his gaze. So his gaze has a countdown, and if the countdown reaches 0 before someone shoots the growth on his back, then you'll fail to capture his gaze, the orbs will disappear, and he'll start shooting eye beams again. So what you want to do is, the first runner shoots his growth, gets his attention, then runs towards where the 4 shooters are. Not necessarily exactly where they are, but stay on the upper level instead of going down into the pit where they are, and just keep his attention around there, because he follows you, and his stomach can only be shot if you're facing his stomach. So if you're at the back of the room and everyone else in the shooter team is in the front of the room, they can't shoot his stomach, which means they can't deal actual damage to his health bar. So when you're running around, make sure you stay around where the shooters are, so they can shoot his stomach and deal actual damage. The second runner needs to position himself or herself behind Golgoroth and ready to shoot the growth to keep his gaze going. So this time, instead of saying switch, you're going to want to make sure you tell your other runner how much time is left on your gaze, so they know when to shoot. Try and save it for last like 3 seconds. That way it's maximum damage on his stomach, because otherwise he'll turn and the shooters won't be able to shoot his stomach and won't deal as much damage as they could. So the runner repeats the same thing. Basically, keep his stomach facing the shooters. And now, the pool of reclaiming light does not last forever. It lasts about the same time it takes to change gaze. So it's about like 20 seconds ish. So you're gonna have to. The shooters are gonna have to shoot down another orb to make another pool. And when the gaze changes the second time, then cursed thrall are also going to start spawning in the pit. So it's nice to have 4 shooters initially, and then have 3 shooters while 1 shooter is on cursed thrall guard or patrol, whatever. So they just shoot the cursed thralls and prevent them from blowing you all up. Now repeat this, and it also helps if you have a Titan bubble, and again use Shadow Shot to weaken him. That's what we did. And if you manage to kill Golgoroth, you will get some raid armor, possibly. I got it. I got Titan gauntlets, and they are War Newman's fists. And basically, you have increased reload speed whenever you're in an aura. So, like, buff of the initiate, or the orbs from the teams of 3, groups of 2. Part 3 of the raid. An aura. But other than that, that's going to be it for this guy. This is only part 1. Part 2 will come out whenever my fire team and I beat the last 2 or 3 or 4 parts of the raid. Don't know how long it is yet. But, thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate it. Make sure you subscribe, like, comment, share. If you have better methods of dealing with these that you found, leave a comment. That would really be cool. Because then I could, maybe make another video and say, okay, this is a better method or whatever. Make sure you follow us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and then follow us on Twitch, because Adam's going to be streaming, in the future. And I would if my internet was good, but it's not. I think that's it. Check out our other guides, that I made, and just keep an eye out for part 2, which will be the death. What happens after you kill Golgoroth. But yeah, so that's it. Later.